Hi everyone, I am Chris with Simply Classic, and today we're going to do a hack video. I know that's some of your favorites and they are mine too. So we are going to do this bag right here, and this is a bag that was posted on the Facebook group, and when I saw it I immediately thought Lusso, and Lusso is a fairly new pattern for us, and basically it's just an asymmetric Lusso. So that's what we're going to do. And I really like the way that this handle in this inspiration bag is adjustable. It's adjustable with a roller buckle, and it's a little different than what I've seen before, so we're going to do that as well. So the bag we're going to do today is this one here. So you can see it is definitely asymmetric. It is right on trend with it being suede. It's a pink suede, and then I used the mauve, solid mauve for the handle. Sunset hue being pink, and a bit sludgy. So what I'm going to do is start out by showing you pattern changes, and we're going to go to the table to make those pattern changes because they're a little bit tricky. You're going to have to get, there's not a lot of them, there's only basically two, but you're going to have to do a little bit of drawing for it. So let's go over first the pattern changes, and I will meet you at the table. A few things you're going to need is obviously some tape. You're of course going to need some scissors to do this, a ruler, a pen, and a couple of extra pieces of paper. Okay, go ahead and print out your pattern pieces and tape them together so you have full pattern pieces. So in this example, I have connecting pieces for the main body, and then I have a fold, which I went ahead and did a second line of connecting pieces and put them together. So now this is my main body pattern unchanged. I'm going to do the same thing with my stabilizer. I have a stabilizer piece that you cut on the fold. I went ahead and connected them, and this is the stabilizer. The bottom stabilizer does not change. So what we're trying to do is we want to go from this to our hack piece, which looks like this. So we are going to obviously need to come down on one side, and we're going to need to go up on the other so that we can get our asymmetric look. So to do this, I want to take my original pattern piece. I'm going to tape a piece of paper to it. Okay, and this Lusso pattern has a section here that is straight along the top edge. Basically, where that point, where that straight edge turns to a curve, is kind of my point of measurement and where I'm going to be measuring as far as width-wise, how far I go. So on one side, we need to come down minus 1.5 inches. On the other side, we're going to go up 1.5 inches. So to do that, I'm going to put my ruler right along this straight edge here, and I'm going to come down 1.5 inches, and I'm going to draw a line. Now this straight edge here is about 1.25 inches, so I want to make sure that I keep my straight edge here about the same, about 1.25. And that's about where it would end. On this side, I'm going to, from that point, measure up. So I'm going to place my ruler right along that straight piece. I'm going to go up 1.5 inches, and I'm going to draw a straight line, and I'm going to make sure that the line is 1.25 inches long. Okay, so now basically what we need to do is connect these 2 points. So you can do this in a couple ways. If you happen to have one of these laying around, which is a French curve, it's going to be the ticket. If you do not, no worries, you can do a couple things. You can either go ahead and draw this in, and just kind of freehand it. Again, doesn't have to be perfect. This is your bag. You can do this however you'd like. You can have whatever kind of shape you want on the top. It is your preference. Or you can take maybe some kind of plate or oval casserole dish and lay it on these points and go ahead and draw that line out. We know we roughly want it to look like this. So it's just basically a slight curve going down to this other point. So I am going to use my French curve, and what I'm going to do is place one edge of the French curve here, the other edge of the French curve here. Now on these French curves, there are certain areas that are curvier than others. This is actually the hip line curve. So I'm going to start out by just kind of placing it like this, drawing the line, and then taking a look and see if I like it. So I actually feel like maybe, you know, this could come down a little bit more, maybe, maybe not. This is going to end up being like a straight, because once this curves down, that 1 1/4 inches of straight edge just is going to kind of mesh into this straight line. So I'm going to go ahead and cut this out, and let's see how it looks. Now you can see right here I have a little bit of a straight edge, when in reality I want this curve to continue up. So I'm going to do that, but when I do it, I'm also cutting this line a little short. And what I mean by this line, this straight edge, we want that straight edge to be 1.25 inches regardless, because we need it for the strap, or the handle basically, to get into. So I'm just going to put another piece of paper behind here, and you can play with this as much as you like. Go ahead and tape it on. And now I'm going to extend this line so it's 1.25 inches. So I'm going to take my ruler, and basically this is where I want my point to be. So essentially this is going to come straight across, and then this is going to curve down like this. So let's go ahead and recut and make sure we like that. And obviously I have some extra paper here. Just get that out of the way. We know this is going to follow that same curve I just drew in, and we know we have a 1.25 inch straight line here. Okay, so basically what we're cutting away now is this section. All right, so here is our pattern piece. Let's see how it compares to the original one I did. And it's pretty close. Now, if your dip here dips more, less, whatever, does not matter. Again, this line is preference as to how deep you want it or what you want it to look like. So now that we have that done, obviously our original stabilizer is not going to fit on there. You're going to see up here we have, extra. We don't have enough going in this direction, and then we have a really deep curve here where this is now not as deep as it was. So what we want to do is we're going to make changes to get to this. Okay, so here is our original piece. This here is our changed piece. So we're going to do the same thing by putting a piece of paper behind this. I'm going to go ahead and just tape it in place. And make sure when you make the changes, you make the changes to the correct side. So my right side here dipped down and my left side went up. So on your stabilizer, you need to do the same thing. So in this case, what I'm going to do is from this point, I'm actually going to come down 2.5 inches on my stabilizer. So take my ruler, come down about 2.5, and I'm just going to draw a straight line. On this side, I only want to go up about 1/2 inch. So I'm going to follow the curve of the stabilizer. I'm going to go up 1/2 inch, and I'm just going to make a little dot. So essentially, that's what I'm doing. So now what we want to do is take and connect this line to this line, but we're going to end up wanting this to be, once we get dipped down, we're going to want this to be fairly straight. So to do that, again, you can use a French curve, or you can just try to kind of freehand it. I'm going to do that this time instead of using a French curve, just so you can kind of see the process. So I know that, this is kind of the curve I'm mimicking, but I also know that my stabilizer needs to be quite a bit down, further down than the top of the bag. The bag is slouchy. You want a little bit of slouch there at the zipper, so you don't want to bring the stabilizer all the way up to the edge of where your zipper is going to be. So I'm just going to kind of come down and come straight across. So I'm going to cut this out, and if it's not right, I just tape paper and reshape it the way I want. Or if I want to add a bigger dip, I can certainly do that too. So I'm just going to cut, cut, cut. Okay, and there's my stabilizer, and looks pretty close to what I originally came up with. So that's the only pattern changes that you need to make, okay? You're not going to use the side strap connectors. You can leave those out. You are going to cut a little bit extra on your handle, and you have one handle connector that I'll tell you about when we go over pattern pieces. The other thing I want to remind you about is because this is an asymmetric bag, you cannot lay this pattern piece on the fabric this way for both sides, because you're going to have one side like this and your other side is going to be turned over like this. So make sure you flip your pattern pieces when cutting out your main part of your bag, your lining, and then also your stabilizer, because your stabilizer has glue on one side. So if you don't flip this pattern piece, your glue is going to be on the wrong side. Okay? So we're going to sew this entire bag on the Burnett 08, and we're going to head on over there and get started. So now that you've seen how to make the pattern changes, we're going to look at the pattern pieces. So as I mentioned, you need to cut your main pattern pieces mirrored. So here is one, and I actually had to flip the pattern piece to get the second one. So it is obviously in the shape that we looked at the table, and then our stabilizers are changed as well. I put 2 layers of Decaville Light down here because I can't find any Decaville Heavy right now. So 2 layers of Decaville Light work. And we've got, of course, 2 of these. Okay, 1, 2 opposite each other. Again, super important. It's one of those things about asymmetric is you got to make sure you flip the pattern pieces over. Okay, because this is a hack video, I went ahead and finished up the lining. So I have one piece of lining here with a slip pocket on it. I have my other piece of lining with my zipper pocket on it. And again, these two are mirrored. This is hard to, hold up. But you see, you've got them cut opposite each other. And then we have a handle, and I did make a change on the handle. I ended up cutting it 45 inches long. And the reason why is because we're going to use a buckle to attach it on one side and stitch it to the bag on the other. It's going to be adjustable. It's kind of a cool way to do it, and I saw it on the inspiration bag and thought we'd give it a try. So I have my handle where I drew the line down the center, went ahead and folded the edges in. We are doing all of this sewing on the Burnette today, so I'll tell you, the more I sew with that machine, the more I love it. So make sure you, if you're interested in a, I guess you call it a semi-industrial machine, you check out Mark and the team. We have it linked below, and you can get a Burnette from them. They'll get you all set up, and they're great to work with. The other thing I have done is my key fob. Okay, super simple, same as normal. Of course, we have our zipper and our zipper pull, and then we have one strap connector. So instead of cutting the larger strap connectors that go down the side of the bag, I'm leaving those off, and instead I'm cutting one strap connector that's 2x4. I went ahead and folded the long edges in just like normal. I did 2 lines of stitching, which we're going to do that same thing on the handle because I think it's just a nice added touch. Now I am using bronze hardware on this pink, and it is, I think it's a nice complement. So I ended up using a sand color Tex 45 thread. The zipper I'm using is the cream and bronze. And the lining I'm using is just from my stash. I have a lot of cotton stash, so I'm trying to get rid of it. So I'll just use that. And then of course the exterior is this beautiful suede, pink suede that we have. And the handle is in the solid mauve. Okay, so we're going to go over to the Burnette. We're going to stitch our handle first, and then we'll get to putting this bag together. We're going to go ahead and stitch this handle first. And as you know, if you've watched me sew, I always like to use some kind of edge guide. Now, the metal on this machine is, the metal, it must be like an aluminum or something. It doesn't stick, like the magnets don't work on it, but it does work on the plate. So I'm just going to go ahead and stick part of it on the plate to help hold this straight so that I know I am stitching in line. So I'm going to stitch my first row at 1/8 of an inch, and then I'll go back and stitch at 1/4 of an inch. Try to get this in just a little bit more. Stitch up the other side before I move my edge guide. I'm going to move this over to about 1/4 of an inch and then stitch one more line down each side. our handle. This stitch length is about a 4. And again, I'm using the sand colored Tex 45 thread that we sell in the shop. It's a Fill-Tech thread, bonded nylon. Okay, so I'm going to set that aside and set my strap connector, my one strap connector aside. And we are going to start out by putting our zipper on the bag. Now, I looked on the inspiration bag because I wanted to see which end the zipper was pulling towards, and I thought it would be pulling towards the bottom position, but actually it's pulling towards the up position. So because we made the pattern adjustment, you can really see here where our straight edge is and where we want to start putting our zipper, which is going to be from this point down, right at this edge. Over here, we kind of need to measure that because obviously we don't have that straight edge anymore since we made the pattern changes. This edge is about 1.5 inches, so you could either go ahead and measure this out and put a little snip so that you know you have exactly the same width on each side, which is what I'm going to do. Go ahead and line that up. I'm just going to put a small little snip there. Because we need to give ourselves some room for the straps to be put in. Okay, so I have a small little snip here. Let me make it a little bit bigger so I can see it better. Okay, so that's where we're going to start and stop our zipper. I want to do the same thing to the other piece because I want to make sure that they're even. So I'm going to take my other main piece. Just going to kind of put these wrong sides together and go ahead and mark where the zipper is going to end. Okay, so now I need to put our zipper on. So I'm going to take some double-sided tape and place it from the point that I made that mark, which is about 1.5 inches, all along this edge. And I'm going to stop here where my straight edge begins. Okay, I'm just going to put it right up to that edge. Go ahead and take the zipper. And at this point, there's no right or wrong way to put this on because our pull is not on yet. So actually, before I do that, I want to go ahead and angle my zipper. So pull your zipper apart slightly. You're going to fold the zipper down in half so you see the zipper teeth up like this. You're going to take this fold and you're going to turn it so it's against the teeth, the upper teeth. And then you're just going to stitch that to make sure it stays in place. I like to stitch with my rest of my zipper going in the back or towards the back. And I am going to, it's best if you use a pin or something here. Okay, so we have our little right angle there on our zipper. So make sure it's even. On the other side, you're going to do the same thing. You want these to be fairly even. I am going to grab a pin real quick so that that stays in place while I stitch. And if they're not exactly, like if they're one tooth off, if you can't quite get it, you're going to be able to kind of cheat it when you go to put your zipper pull on the other side. So don't worry too much about it, but you do want to try to get them as even as possible here. Careful you do not sew on your pin. and basically what I've done is just sewn in the seam allowance right here on the edge of the zipper. So now we are going to take the zipper, the edge that we folded in, and because we want the zipper to close towards the top, we're going to take that top right angle, place it right side of the zipper down on the right side of the bag, and I'm going to put the edge of the zipper teeth right up against where this straight edge is. Okay, so there's the straight edge. I'm just putting the teeth right up against that. And I'm going to lay the zipper down without pulling it. Now we do have a slight curve here. So you are going to have little places in your zipper that don't lay flat. What you want to do, don't pull it out because you're going to get a wavy zipper. What you want to do is just kind of work those in. Okay. When you get to the spot where we marked where you want your zipper to be stopped, I'm actually going to pull this zipper apart. I'm going to take that edge and I'm going to fold it at a right angle down so that the teeth are going down inside the bag, okay, or towards the front of the bag, just like this. Put a little clip there so that it holds that for me. And now I'm going to baste this on. So basting just means I'm going to stitch it at about 1/8 of an inch. So that's what we have so far. So take one of your lining pieces and you're going to place it right on top. Now when we stitch, you are just going to stitch basically where you stitched before. So in between your two markings, the marking that we made earlier where our zipper tape is going to, and then this straight line. Do not stitch to the edge on either side. I am going to put a little bit of double-sided tape on here because I feel like it kind of helps it not be as wavy as it may be otherwise. And then we are going to stitch this using a 1/4 inch seam allowance. Now you notice on this Bernette machine I have my Teflon foot on. I normally keep that on all the time when I'm stitching with it. It's just kind of my go-to foot. You could certainly switch this out for a zipper foot at this point if you would like. So we're going to remove the backing from the tape. Go ahead and put the lining right on top. You want to match the edges, the raw edges. And then if you need to mark with a marking pen where to stop stitching, you can do that, or you can just kind of feel where your zipper's at and know to stop there. You do want to back stitch here on both sides, and again, 1/4 inch seam allowance at this point. And there we have so far okay, looks good. So we're going to repeat that same thing on the other side. going to take my double-sided tape, place it between my two markings, again, which is this straight edge on this side and the mark I made on the other. We're going to take the other side of our zipper. Again, we're going to place the teeth at the top, right against this straight edge. And then we're going to lay this zipper down without pulling. Any little bubbles we'll just kind of work in. And then I'm going to take this other edge, fold it at a 90-degree angle, put a clip, and then we're going to baste this in place. From here, I'm going to put a little bit more double-sided tape right on top of the zipper tape. We're going to remove the paper and place our lining on. So once we have this on, we're going to go ahead and stitch using a 1/4 inch seam allowance. Again, just between our two markings. So we have that completed. I'm going to go ahead and stitch my bottoms together. So just the bottom of the main part of the bag first. And then we're going to open that seam allowance up and top stitch on both sides to hold it down. So I'm just going to kind of open this up. Let me tell you, if you have not bought any of this leather or suede yet, it is amazing to work with. And if you have been watching the Bag Makers Workroom, you know that suede is a huge trend for spring, believe it or not. So it really, and sunset hues. So theoretically, we have got a pink bag, which is a sunset hue, right? You see pink in the sunset. And then we have the suede. So this bag is right on trend, and it's kind of slouchy. That's another trend. So I think we are doing a good job with this. So if you want to see how to do the lining or any part of the bag I'm not doing in this video, I'm going to refer you back to the original Lusso tutorial. I'm going to go over all the steps in that tutorial. Back and And do one more on the other side. Clean up my little threads here. And I do want purse feet on this bag, so I'm going to go ahead and install purse feet, and then we'll continue putting the bag together. I have my purse feet installed, and I'm using the screw-in kind that we have in the shop. And I went ahead and put some Loctite on the screws because I don't want the purse feet to come out. Now, sometimes in my bags, I put an extra piece of foam on top of this, really more for luxury purposes than anything else. It does give it a little more stability as well. And since I don't have any Decaville Heavy, instead I have 2 layers of Decaville Light, it's still, I feel like could add a little something. So I'm going to just put a piece of foam. And the way I do that usually is I like to cover my hardware anyway. So I'm just going to put some tape along the hardware, cover the back of that, cover these, and then I'll peel that off and put the foam on. Now you can do a couple things. You can stitch it on around the edges, which will give you kind of an added decorative stitch on the right side, or you can just leave it and, you know, it may not stick super well once you turn it, but once you do turn it, it should be fine. So I'm going to put this on, and this piece of foam is 4 inches wide, 4 inches wide this way by the length of basically the stabilizer. And I need to move it over a little bit. I usually cut it just slightly smaller. Okay. That looks good. So now when I flip this over, I'm just going to press down. And I can feel where that foam is. I'm going to go ahead and just stitch all the way around that from the right side, just to kind of make sure it stays on, and then again it's going to add a decorative touch here at the bottom. So just kind of take it slow. Do one more stitch this way. I'm just feeling where the foam is underneath. I am going to pull my thread through to the back so that I can tie them off so that I don't have any back stitches here. Now, because I use the automatic thread cutter, a couple of these are really short. So I'm going to just make sure I get them in there. That's one thing you need to keep in mind with this machine is that if you are going to be tying off stitches, don't use the automatic thread cutter. Okay, and there is my stitched bottom. And then on this side, here it is. You can see I didn't quite catch the foam right here. I'm not worried about it. I'm not going to go back and restitch. I'm not going to take the stitches apart. Nobody's going to know when you're looking at this from the outside that I didn't quite catch the foam right there. Except for you and me. Okay, you can't tell here. It looks great. Okay, so from here we are going to continue on. So we're going to put the right sides together. Go ahead and clip these in place. And remember from the Lusso tutorial that we have to stitch all the way up to the top here. Okay, stitch off of the main part of the bag. Don't worry about the lining yet. We'll get to that in just a minute. Okay, and now we're going to stitch. And you notice on both of these sides I'm starting at the top. Obviously the top is the place that matters the most. We want to make sure it matches exactly. And then from here, you can see the bottoms are going to almost box themselves. We want to go ahead and box the bottoms. Now, because we are not putting in any side connectors that go to the bottom, we can go ahead and box this bottom now. We don't have to worry about turning the bag and putting the connectors in first and then turning it back. Okay, so I'm going to go ahead and stitch. I always like to stitch from the top, so I'm just going to flip this up, open it up, kind of flatten it out like this, and then go ahead and stitch. Same thing on this side. I'm going to go ahead and trim these in just a minute. Put the lining together first, but you want to go ahead and trim them so you don't forget. I am going to go ahead and just kind of clip my zipper tails out of the way for right now so that I don't accidentally stitch them. Okay. So we're going to make sure that the top matches. Clip to the bottom. Do the same thing here. Okay, and then we're going to stitch. You want to start out stitching your lining at the same seam allowance and then gradually make it larger. So from here, I'm going to trim my seam allowances down on the lining. I'm going to go ahead and trim my seam allowance down on the main part of the bag. I'm also going to trim off my little zipper ends here on each side that are sticking out. This is on the side that we did the 90-degree angle and stitch, not the longer ends that are inside. And then I'm going to go ahead and turn the bag. Although I just realized I forgot my key fob. I'm so good at that. Let me go ahead and unpick this and stick it in. So the only thing I like to make sure of is that the key fob is put on the place where the zipper opens, so I'm not having to unzip the entire zipper to grab the keys out if I need to do that. And granted, we all have, for the most part, automatically starting vehicles. You just press a button. But I like to still clip that to my key fob. And I'm going to restitch this. All right, good now. Okay, so I'm going to go back, trim all my seams like I just said. I'm going to turn the bag and then we will return. So I have the bag all turned, everything's trimmed down, and what I need to do is install this handle and handle connector. So I'm going to push the lining on the inside. Sorry about all the clanking with the feet and everything. Here, let me move this. Okay, So from here, what we need to do is to go ahead and install the strap. So the strap itself is going to be connected on the upper side of the bag. So if you normally wear your bags on your right shoulder, then you have to kind of think about, this is going to go on. You want the upper part to be towards your back, the lower part to be towards your front. So that means this here is my front. If you normally wear on your left shoulder, it's going to be just the opposite. So you kind of need that orientation before we get this handle on. So I'm going to open up my seams and tuck the lining and the bag under. So basically what I'm doing is just tucking the two seams under so that they are hidden, okay? So the raw edges are hidden. Then we need to take one side of our strap and we're going to place it in there. So we're going to attach the strap directly to the bag. And you want to make sure you push it in enough that it's going to grab. Okay, don't just push it in like 1/4 of an inch. Go ahead and put it down. Like the end of my strap is down here, so a good inch. Okay, so that part is going to be done. On this side, we're going to do the same thing, but we need to put our strap connector, and we're going to need to put some kind of piece of hardware on here. You can use an O-ring, you can use a D-ring, rectangle ring, whatever you prefer. Make sure those are tucked in. And I'm going to use one of our O-rings. So I'll move that over, tuck this in, push it down in there, and then we'll stitch that. So at this point, we are going to top stitch and grab our handles as we go. Okay, stitch our handles in as we go. So go ahead and make sure your zipper looks good. Make sure your lining's down in there really well. And we're going to top stitch. Now I'm going to start here on the side where my O-ring is, and even though I'm using a different color thread and all, you know, this is something that we really want to be secure. So I'm going to do a little bit of a back stitch. So I'm going to make sure my zipper tails are out of the way. And if you want to move your machine off your table a little bit, you can do that. We do have some bulk right here because we have strap connector ×2 and a lining and a front. So I'm going to do a couple of hand stitches here just to kind of make sure everything looks like it's lined up. Now I'm going to hold my bag in the back for just a second. I know it's going to be hard for you to see. I'm going to try to do it this way. I'm just going to make sure my zipper looks good here. Now the greatest thing about this machine, I don't know if you can tell, is that it's going downhill right now, and I don't need any kind of hump jumper. So it's kind of got that built-in feature where you don't need it. I think it's called a differential feed, and oh my gosh, it is amazing. Making sure my lining's in there good. Coming over to my handle, I'm going to make sure it's nice and centered. Went up that hill, no problem. And you can see I'm not going super fast, obviously, as we're doing that. Kind of give your machine time to do what it needs to. Feed this handle through. Coming back over to where my strap adjuster is, and I am going to do, as I said, a little back stitch here. Okay, get it out. So from here, we need to go ahead and unzip our pocket. Go ahead and pull out the pocket itself. We're going to pull the bottom of the bag through the pocket, just like we always do, and go ahead and finish this up. So I'm going to stitch the bottom, box the corners, and then get that back inside the bag. And then after I do that, I'll stitch the pocket closed. Again, for more detailed instructions on this, you can certainly watch the full tutorial on the Lusso. We have it linked, and you can go check it out after watching this one. And I ran out of bobbin, so I am going to go ahead and replace my bobbin and then go ahead and finish up closing the bottom of this bag, and then we'll come back and do the handle. So I've got everything closed up. I put my zipper pull on. I went ahead and put my zipper end on the other side of the zipper, and now we need to put the handle together. And this is probably the trickiest part. So you want to use a roller buckle. It's going to be the best kind of buckle to use. Not a center bar buckle, but something similar to this that has just the tongue on one side and a roller on the other. Okay. You want to make sure your handle, of course, is not twisted. And then you're going to place the roller buckle onto the handle. And as you do it, you want the roller part to be facing you, so basically facing up. And you want the tongue to be the right side of the tongue away from you, the wrong side of the tongue towards you, okay? So you see how, and that's important. So we're going to go ahead and roll this on, and then we're going to take the end of the strap and we're going to feed it through the ring. Now this is where we need to connect it. So you're going to, and the best way to do this is just kind of let this roller buckle hang like this. Take the strap, and I have 3 holes here. I have 2 holes for a rivet and 1 hole for the tongue to go through. And the holes are about 1 inch apart. So you're going to take the strap, you're going to feed it through the roller buckle, to the second hole, and then you're going to go ahead and put the tongue through that second hole. I'm going to rivet these 2 holes together. Okay, I'll set that rivet in just a minute. And then you need to put holes in your handle. Now that's personal preference as to where you want to put those. It's just going to depend on where you want your strap. You can put as many or as few as you'd like to make it adjustable. So now what you're going to do is just take that tongue, feed it through the hole, and pull it tight, and your strap is complete. Now you could certainly add a couple of like strap keepers around here to kind of hold it tight, to each other so it isn't gapping like this. If I did that, I would do it, probably just close it up with rivets and put it on here and slide it on. But as you hold this bag up, it's going to kind of take care of itself. Okay, so then as you want to adjust your flat or your strap, you just roll this up, or if you have holes below, you roll it down and you can adjust it. Okay, and there we have our Lusso hack. Now let me warn you about a couple of things. Number 1 is you want to make sure you put your pockets down far enough on your lining that it doesn't interfere with the slouch of the bag. Okay, so I put them roughly, show you here, where the short side is, I came down about 1 inch. Probably could have come down about a little bit more than that, maybe 1.5 inches, but my pocket is all the way at the bottom of the bag. So if you want to do that, you're going to have to make your pocket slightly smaller. Okay. On this side, that zipper pocket is really the perfect height, and again, it is about maybe a little more than 1 inch from the top of this. All right. So I hope you enjoyed the tutorial. We're going to call this the Lusso hack. A really cool, beautiful, asymmetric bag, perfect for spring, just really amazing. So until next time, everybody, happy sewing.